Hi guys, welcome back to another video, or your first video here, I don't know. Welcome if you're new here, welcome either way. This video is going to be my favourite books that I read in 2021. Now you may be wondering why this video is so much later than my worst books of 2021, despite the fact that I filmed them on the same day, and that is because this massive dum-dum deleted the footage when the video was I'd already edited the entire video, and when it was exporting, I deleted the footage too early, and it didn't export because of the fact that it could not find the footage to export the video. So this is the second time I'm filming this. I threw away my list of favourites, so these might be in the same order that I originally had them in. They may not be, but these books I all gave 5 stars. I loved each and every one of these, and I wanted to talk about them because I love them so much. So let's just get into it. In the 10th spot, I have The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum. Do I have this in a spot that I can take it down quickly? Nope. So a picture will be put up. I love this book mainly for the nostalgia. So my sister and I watched a lot of sort of movies again and again over holiday periods. So we have a set of movies that we always used to watch around Christmas time, and a set of movies we always used to watch around Halloween. And a lot of these were straight to TV, straight to DVD or video movies that never really had a theatrical release. They had a very low budget, and looking back at them now, the animation is awful and like they don't hold up in animation style. However, a lot of them, the story is still great, the voice acting is still amazing, and the nostalgia really holds up, and we still enjoy to this day. One of those is The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, which we found the video in a charity shop randomly as kids, and we used to rewatch this every Christmas. This most recent Christmas, we rewatched it for the first time in ages, and I was looking it up to try and find it, and I found out it was a book. Not only that, but it was by L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which I thought, okay, I'll give it a go and try it out. And I really, really loved it. It's such a wonderful Christmas story that I wish that more people read to their kids when they were younger, and I will definitely be recommending this moving forward. But this was such a lovely read. In my number 9 spot, I have Socially Awkward. Can't remember who this is by. It's by a duo of authors, but you'll be seeing them on the screen because, again, it's on my top shelf and I'm not tall enough to reach it without a ladder. And this book is the third and final, for now, book in the Red Air series. I know this series had another name, but I cannot remember it. And this series basically takes fantasy tropes and just pokes fun at them. It's a very fun romp. If you are looking for a serious, gritty, nuanced fantasy story, this is not the book for you. Do not go in with that expectation. It's just a ton of fun. This is the least sex heavy of the 3 novels that are out, and each book follows a set of different characters. So Red Air is a quest novel where a rescue team is sent in to a prison to rescue someone, and they have a description, and as they get to the cell they can't tell which of the 2 boys in this cell they're supposed to rescue, so just decide to rescue both, and it's about the hijinks that ensue. And I was very, very worried because books like this that have a series do tend to just take the same cast of characters and give them a slightly different quest, which just ends up having the same novel. But this didn't do that. It took a side character and gave them their own story, brought in a bunch of new characters, and I really, really loved that. The second book followed the elves that were introduced, and the third book followed the orc Dave and his love interest Simon. This book is also incredibly gay, and both of these main characters in Socially Awkward identify as ace, which was great to see in a fantasy novel. You don't see that very often. The relationship between these two was the most precious thing in the world. It was so, so beautiful. Also, it's a book about dragons, and who doesn't love a good dragon? So I highly recommend. I loved it. So the next book I have, I don't know why I labelled this the wrong way around numbers wise, so I'm going to forget which order these are in. Also, I think that up until like the top three, you could really give these in any order. I loved all of these pretty much equally, but the top three I have sort of cemented in my mind as the top three books I read last year. But the next one I have is Eric by Terry Pratchett, which I have right here. I have the special edition because it is stunning. So, Terry Pratchett is one of my favourite authors. I have loved every single one of his books. Apart from the first book in the Discworld novel, I've given them all 5 stars. I think they're incredible. And he is just such... I think he's one of the best authors in the absurdism genre and one of the most clever, and I can't wait to finish out this series, which probably isn't going to happen this year because it's so bloody long. But this book in specific was a reread. I reread it multiple times throughout the year. It's a comfort read for me. I love it a lot. And it follows a character called Rincewind, who in a previous novel got trapped elsewhere, and him and his walking luggage are trying to get back to the Discworld, and they end up being helped by a demon summoner, and the devil might be after him. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, this book and this series in general is just fantastic. Just don't start with the first novel in the series, that's a bad idea. Once I've read a lot more of the books in that series, I might do a sort of guide to the Discworld. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. The next book I have on this list is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I don't think this book needs any more hype. Everyone loves this. It's a book about a sort of... It's set in our world, but if a woman had won the election instead of the orange man that we do not speak of, and if her son and one of the princes of England had a romance, and just... This was great. I loved the both bisexual and gay representation in here. I read this for my Virgo vlog, which I need to finish out because it ended up being ridiculously long, and I think I've learnt my lesson in terms of planning a vlog series. Something I saw in here that I don't often see with especially bisexual representation is when someone has found out that they have the capacity to be sexually attracted to someone before they realise that they can be romantically attracted to a certain gender. And I think that as it was personally my experience, I don't see that very much in bisexual books, and I think was really good that it happened in here. There were so many tropes it could have fallen into. I really thought that it was going to fall into a miscommunication trope quite early on, but then they talked it out and I was like, yes, a book about romance that doesn't just rely on, oh, we could have had this conversation about 500 pages ago, but we didn't because we needed to drag out the plot. But this book was great. So the next book I have, and sort of my play for this list, was Little Shop of Horrors. This is my favourite musical, or at least one of my top 3 favourite musicals of all time. I absolutely love it. I've been in it. I have seen it both done professionally and an Amdram version. I have read it several times, so this was another reread for me, but I just love it. I think I'd had a string of books I didn't really like, and I wanted something that I was going to really enjoy, so I picked this up, and I could recite the whole thing to you anyway, so none of it was surprising, but I loved it. It's basically about an assistant florist and who's really down on his luck. He doesn't really see how he could ever make a better life for himself, despite having big dreams, and all his dreams seem to start coming true when a talking plant starts promising to grant all his wishes, but the plant demands blood. So it's about the hijinks that ensue after that. It's a great play. If it's on near you, please go see it. It's great. Also, the movie is one of the best movie musicals of all time, so highly recommend that too. The next book that I have, and also the best comic that I read over the year, is The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. So this comic is just delightful. I'm sure you don't need a plot synopsis because it has been making the rounds on BookTube for several years now. It's just so good. It's about a society where there are rare dragons that grow tea leaves on their backs and on their horns, and it's about the keepers of those dragons. It's about keeping traditions alive. It's so inclusive. The art style is stunning, and I think if I had one critique, I would have loved it to be a lot longer, but I have since read... No, I read before this the Tea Dragon Festival, which I thought was, again, delightful, lovely, and I know that there are more books in this series that I definitely want to get around to reading, because this was great. The next book that I have was a short horror novella, which I do actually have a copy now, so I can hold it up. This is a novella published by Tor. They publish a lot of short, very diverse novellas, which I tend to love a lot of, and this has such an interesting texture. I don't know what sort of paper they use for the cover of this, but I just love the way it feels. I don't know. It just makes me happy. I don't know if that's a common thing. This is The Monster of Elendhaven by Jennifer Giesbrecht. I haven't taken German in a long time, so I apologise if I completely butchered that name. So this I put on this list mainly for the atmosphere. You could feel the smoky, dark environment and city that you were in when reading this. It's so incredibly good. Is this, because of the length of it, is this the most developed story with a huge cast of characters and like a very well developed world? No, but I got such an idea of what was going on. I got such an idea of the environment and the history of this place, and the main two characters we were following, I feel like we really got to know who they were as well, and they have kind of a relationship, kind of a master-slave arrangement. It's a very, very odd scenario, but both of these characters were absolutely fascinating, and it's really just dark. And I read one of the quotes on the back and I was like, this just perfectly encapsulates this story. The Monster of Elendhaven is a gothic delight, dark as an oil slick and iridescent with feral humour, bruised violet prose, and a fascinatingly depraved tragic romance. And I just think that that perfectly encapsulates the tone of this, and I really, really loved it, and probably going to reread it soon because I just think it's great. And we're now on to my final three, I believe, unless I've forgotten anything. No, maybe it's good that I did delete my footage, because now I can actually hold up some of the books because I've since bought them. The next book that I have is No One Is Too Small to Make a Difference by Greta Thunberg. As far as I can recall, this was my favourite book of the first half of the year when I did the mid-year book freakout tag. This is just incredible. The grasp that this girl has, especially for how young she is, on science and environmental sciences and the effects of climate change is frankly better than a lot of adults I have met, and the hatred that she has got from adults is frankly disgusting. This is essentially a collection of her speeches that she has given, and it's not got a plot necessarily. However, this was an incredibly powerful read, also very, very short, very small, and if anyone is just wanting to be more informed, I would say this is a great place. I think it was very accessible, but also brought up a lot of very, very vital points about the current crisis we are in and how people are not treating it as the crisis that it is. So, highly recommend. My second best book of 2021 was Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. This is the first year that I read this book, despite the fact that it came out a number of years ago, sort of in the paranormal romance boom. And this, I would say, is what paranormal romance should have been at the time, and one of the only ones I think really holds up by today's standards of literature. This was so good, so well written, such an interesting world and idea that this author put forward, and also did not fall into any of the tropes I normally see in this genre. I picked this up after a months long reading slump because I thought I'll just pick up something fun and stupid to just like ease my way back into reading. This was like not tropey or stupid or anything. It was so good. If you were really disappointed by the Fallen series by Lauren Kate, there are weirdly a lot of parallels you can draw between these two series. However, this book did it a million times better. The main character isn't this brunette girl who is a wet blanket and is just a stand-in for the reader. She's opinionated and sarcastic. She's got bright blue hair and tattoos. She sticks up for herself, and I think she's amazing. The best friend character is a best friend to the main character, and she has her own life and opinions and is supportive and isn't just dropped, and she's so distinct. I love Susanna so much. I would love to read a spin-off about her, to be honest. I really love her as a character as well. The romance doesn't just mean that the war going on in the background takes a back seat. It's such a prevalent discussion about how violence breeds more violence, and you know, this girl holds her own against an angel when she has left her weapons at home. And also the family dynamics, though not very traditional, I loved their dynamics. I loved how this world worked, and I thought I was going to binge the rest of the series. The second book ended up being a very different tone from this one, so I'm taking it a lot slower. I stopped halfway through and I've read some other things, but I'm very excited to get back into it so that I can finish out this series. But this was great, and if I hadn't read the other book that I'm about to mention, this would be my top spot for the year. And speaking of top spot for the year, I have Wicked by Gregory Maguire. This book was so good. I again read this for my Virgo vlog, and I didn't really know what I would think about it. I was often told it's way darker than the musical, you're a fan of the musical, it's very different, so you're not going to enjoy this. And I think it also has quite a low rating because people tend to read it after seeing the musical and expect that. So I was apprehensive going in, and after a couple of chapters I did end up taking quite a substantial break from this because of the fact that the discussions of racism and segregation were so prevalent in here, and I think that a lot was going on in my life, and I was like, I just can't handle this subject matter right now, I will get back to it. And I was also like, oh, these characters are supposed to be people that I sympathise with, and they're not really saying and doing very good things, and I don't know how the author is trying to portray them. I didn't know what stance they were going for. I was like, does the author think that these behaviours are okay and is portraying them in his good characters because he thinks those are good actions? But when I got back to it and binged the rest of it, I loved it so much, and by the time that I had finished, I have not stopped thinking about it. It's so good. No character is black or white, no character is totally good or totally evil. Everybody does things and makes bad decisions or good decisions, and the characters are just so interesting to analyse and read about. I think that some of the diversity in here, which could have translated into the musical very easily, wasn't, and I think that's very disappointing. Both Elphaba and Glinda are bi in this book, so are many of the other characters. Fiyero was a person of colour as well in this book, and it's something that Elphaba and Fiyero get along, not because of. It's something they identify in each other because of the discrimination that both of them face. And this was just so fantastic. I think I would find new things out about this story with every reread of this. I think that the discussions on how people can be complacent in allowing segregation to happen was really, really fascinating. I thought that the discussions on religion as well was really, really interesting, because in here Elphaba's family are incredibly religious, and just those discussions, I think, like where good and evil comes from and philosophy, it was just such an interesting exploration. I also don't think this is necessarily darker than the musical is, but I just think it's more adult in its themes. So this is not a kid's book. This is not a book that I think, especially with some of the scenes in the middle, the one that comes immediately to mind is the scene in the philosophy club. Those of you who've read this, you know. I wouldn't want a kid reading that, but this is amazing, and I think I will be continuing with the rest of the series. So, yes, favourite book of the year. This was great, please read. So hopefully I won't be a complete dumb this time and delete the footage before it's finished exporting. But thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear about a book you really enjoyed over the past year down below. So please tell me about it in the comments, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.